we said, obviously, I did publish this video, which was like a 1 hour 50 expose of Rekkles' career. Crucially, people missed this part. None of it was my opinion. All of it was literally cross-referenced using journalistic methods. All the reports of players who have been teammates of his, coaches of his, organization figures of his, even people who've known him. I won't go into more details because obviously I can't give away any of the sources. So I did this long video where I did this expose, which I will say, sadly, there was almost no discussion about the actual video. It all just became a thing of like what's going on with Rekkles at the moment and how he's feeling and what the effect on him is, etc. Which, by the way, to me is completely a secondary component. Like I'm exposing what I think is corruption and bad behavior in the industry. So what I thought we'd do is this. We're not going to do a massive section on it. I don't know what you're going to say about it, but you can lead the way on this one. What would you want to talk about with this particular video? What's the framing you want to set up for this?
No, it's like in my mind, right? It's like I have like enjoyed like the biggest videos that I've always enjoyed from your side was like the Thorin versus videos. It's like the one that you dropped on like what was it, like Game of Doc, and there was a Sheep Esports one, and like the whole EG saga as well. Like those were like so. Like the build up was just so super clean. I didn't know how you did it. Like on 2 hours, just fucking no cuts, rock and roll. You know, it was just fucking such a steady build up, and it was just so cohesive and clean. And I felt like in this one, for me, like in terms of like the build up, in terms of where like some of the things from outside, it's like even though I know some of these stories right from like olden days of like what happened in Fnatic and some of these other teams, in terms of the significance of some of the things, I think in some cases they like convoluted the things that I thought were like more important. Like I think like the Casey segment, right? I thought that was like sharp, really good. But then there was like the gameplay segments and the gameplay things where it's like from outside, I think you can just see it as like, oh, this is like Rekkles is flawed as a player. He's always a player that like played a set few champions, right? And it's like, it just comes across as, like, is this really important, or is this relevant? I feel like it could have been like sharper, or like in terms of like the presentation, you know?
I know what you mean. Put it this way, I could have just made the video 30 minutes and it could have just essentially skipped the first, I don't know, what, 40 minutes or something. It could have just been, right, here are the worst stories of Rekkles being a diva. Like, here's when he refused to play something in scrims and then told them 1 minute before the stage, I can play that, and then ended the game on stage. I could have shown ones where, like, those stories that people don't know publicly, you might know, like that literally at Season 8 Worlds, notice no one's disputed this, by the way, at Season 8 Worlds, the team actually voted bench this guy. We'd rather lose Worlds and have no chance whatsoever than play with him. And if you don't know, that was the tournament where he was really good, and they actually went to the finals after that boot camp because he was just being so antisocial to them, and they actually thought like abusive in terms of like how he's controlling the scrims and people's environment stuff. I could have just done that, but that's actually where people just didn't listen to the beginning of the video, Yamato. This wasn't a video of my opinion about why Rekkles is like a douchebag or something. It was presented that way. This was a video where I talked to all those people, and this is actually where I don't even get the criticism, because I never said this video, every minute of it is why Rekkles is a piece of shit. Like, no. Like, I even, if you notice, early on, I even explained things about eras when people liked playing with him. By the way, you'll notice that's probably the most dishonest response to the whole thing that people have done. They've said, you made a whole video about when he was 15. No, I actually explicitly said that there were very few problems until about 2017. Do the maths, he would be 21 years old then. And actually, when he was the youngest player in teams, people liked playing with him. He was successful at the game. The meta fit him at the time. And it was only the odd story, like the weird one in Alliance where he started smoking as like a weird, like way to cope with stress, or when he just didn't want to duo with Yellow Star, because just like double left after him, a lot of people thought Yellow Star was actually mechanically bad at the time, even though he was sort of a Doinby-esque figure from support, was kind of a genius. So I actually made it very clear actually that period was a positive aspect. By the way, that's what I think is a very fair video. If you don't know, I reference it later in the video about a story when he carried the game on Civet in Fnatic in 2023. When I talked to some of the people, I made it quite clear. I actually gave numbers. I said like 15% of people don't even dislike him. They liked him, or they thought he just had issues in this area, or he's just a quiet guy or whatever, or in their era, maybe it's early on, they didn't have problems with him and he fit into the squad. When I explained in the video that I'm going to try and give their perspective on him as a person. Now, wouldn't it be way worse to just exclude all the good things and exclude all the times people said things were fine, or his game worked, or they appreciated playing? What? It sounds like people only want the TMZ, mate. And by the way, this isn't TMZ, because this isn't like Sars is close to. This is a part people have missed on this whole thing, is every single story I have sourced there isn't like someone over a beer like, have you heard this fucking shit I heard? I can't go into it more, Yamato, because I can't give a single clue as to who the people are, because then those people will get the reaction I did, and their life will be ruined for 2 weeks. Not mine, but theirs will be, because sadly they'll all read the bloody replies. They're all fans, and they all care about what Reddit thinks and Twitter thinks. So unfortunately, I actually feel like people just decide on this one. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I certainly could have just made it the exciting stories, but what I wanted to do was, this is what those people, by the way, there were people in every single team he ever played in, this is what they wanted the world to know. They wanted them to know things that, like, personality aspects of him didn't just manifest in inting a scrim. It would also manifest in, like, would he even be willing to play a meta champion that they're all playing? Would he play it for a week and they got success and then suddenly abandon it? And then they go, why are we losing scrims? Well, you were awesome on Callista. You were going, like, you know, these are things they wanted to get out there. Things about his personality. Mate, that's not even stuff I was asking people about. I was asking people stuff like, oh, I heard he was going to get benched for Forgiven, or what was going on with this thing here. People were telling me things like, no, I want to actually make it very clear. I actually think he has this aspect to his personality, or the way he communicated in this way felt manipulative. Like, he would go to, there's even stories I didn't tell where it's like 2 players would come to a coach and go, oh, for next season, like, I think we should kick player B because, like, Rekkles agrees with me, like, he's, like, not the right person for our team. And then the joke is, mate, the next day, player B would come to the coach and go, look, me and Rekkles have had a chat. We're cool with how we're playing, but player A, it's like the way his champion pool's going is just not acceptable. And the joke there is, like, he's just played both people off against each other. And by the way, in that scenario, when the coaching staff's aware of that, like, now you've got a massive problem as a coach. Not only are you dealing with these 2 players, you're dealing with this element over here. You try not to let the whole team fracture. These are also, you'll notice, all squads that compete for the championship. So the stakes are crazy. I also wanted to show that part, by the way. There's been this crazy myth that in all these teams, everyone's just best friends and everything's awesome. And actually, by the way, I will say Rekkles has gone out of his way on his stream to present that view of the world, that Hillsang's his best mate and he loves Broxer and him and Nemesis and Selfmade all got, like, these statements just aren't true. Look, I don't know what you want to say about any of this stuff. You're welcome and say whatever you like. So I don't really even know. Here's the weirdest thing. Which is it? Because it can't be both. Was it a massive nothing burger that everyone had already heard, and Rekkles didn't watch the video anyway, so no harm, no foul. It's just a video I made you all chose to watch. Or was it outrageous lies which are bullying him and none of these things happened and I have no sort? Which is it? Because everyone wants it to be all of it at the same time as far as I can tell. So I don't know what you guys want. And by the way, I didn't make the video for you. There's another thing. I made this video for the people who were the victims of Rekkles over these years. And one of the reasons also, by the way, why I even say in the video, I won't speculate about him having autism, is one, I have no idea if that's even a medical diagnosis or if someone just told him you might have the symptoms of autism. I have no idea that. None of us do, by the way. We actually have very little information about that. He just said it in an interview once. Secondly, I didn't go into this in the video because I actually just wanted to present what his teammates said. It wasn't a video about my opinion, Yamato. A lot of people might not know this. I actually haven't had that tweet up for years. I'm autistic. But I didn't mention that because, first of all, I would, by the way, don't worry, if I make my own video, I'd have a very different perspective on certain things, by the way, I might even be more forgiving of. Certain things I would be very unforgiving of, where I don't think that's actually to do with autism. I think you can just be a different person who's more honest, etc. But I didn't want to muddy the water with that sense. It's actually quite funny that it's being portrayed as some crazy TMZ. I've even heard people describe it as a rant. Bro, I'm just actually talking way less animated than I am now. I'm just going. And then in this team, they were telling him to practice Jinx and Kai'Sa, but he didn't want to play them. So then he insisted on playing. It's actually like, it's such an even tone in the whole video, mate. And it's only really when I hit like a really fucked up thing I say, and then he did this. Or I go, and then they bench him for Forgiven. So I feel like the silliest thing about this is, I think I just proved exactly the reason why no player can ever go on record. Is you will get this response. And mate, if you were one player and you went on the record, oh, you'll just get destroyed. Because you were just one player, maybe you didn't get along with it. Well, how about if I show you that throughout like 70% of this guy's career, a majority of people in his teams had an issue with him. A majority of coaches don't want to work with him. That's just a fact, mate. I have explored it. You are welcome to call me a liar. I don't give a fuck. I have 23 years on this motherfucker. None of you can say that. So there you go. Anything else to know? Any other thoughts?
Like I do think that anyone that would come at this like most people, if it was like the community in terms of just size of fandoms and so perceptions, they would come at this in like the most like bad faith towards anything you would say, right? I think that's for sure. I do think that there was very little, like, I guess it's like in terms of not having the understanding that there is, like, you have to say it in a very, very certain way in regards to, of course, to protect, because it's like it's very, very, like, you give out, like, even if sometimes if you just give the direct quote, yep, it can already be like very, very obvious. So you need to.
People were saying, Yamato, why not do something like blur the name and show the Discord screenshot? These are all clues. Even the way it's written, the language the person uses, the length of it, everything could be a clue. That's why, I won't go into it again because it'll give away what I'm doing. That's why I keep saying things constantly, like supposedly, I think someone said, that's not an accident, Yamato. That's an actual technique I'm using. Because I'll tell you what, you knew some of the stories. Do you think I gave away anyone? I think it'd be pretty, unless you were actually in those teams, I think you'd have a very hard time naming who the players and the coaches were. I think you'd have a hard time, mate. Maybe a couple you could get, but you've been around these people for some of your career. I think some of these are ones you've heard, but there was a lot where, like, I had some that was straight fire, mate, and I don't think anyone guessed some of these people. That's why some people even said that I wasn't in the video. They went out of their way to say it.
No, definitely. I think that aspect is like very, very difficult to navigate, right? I think that if you mentioned it's like your goal was to tell the stories of his past teammates, and in terms of like getting those stories out, it's like the stories are out, but the consequence, it's like what was the reaction you would hope for in terms of like because on this side, right?
Yeah.
So on this side, it's like I can imagine the people that told you these things. It's like now in the aftermath, it's like, what did they gain?
Not a single person. All these people, everyone who's reached out to me thanked me for still doing the video and essentially tanking the aggro from all these fans. These people are very happy the story is out. Here's the thing with Arto. It wasn't about being believed. When you are as popular as like the Cristiano Ronaldo of Western League of Legends, spoiler, I'll even use that as an actual reference. People will just believe you're the good guy in every scenario. You're Cristiano Ronaldo, bro. Of course you couldn't have done anything bad. You're the best guy ever. You come off great in interviews, great on camera. Everyone loves you, clean cut, etc. This is the weirdest part about this topic, is this whole thing of like, what do you think about the consequences of the person who's reckless? No. You know what, Yamato? When someone has abused and manipulated teammates in a malicious manner for 6 to 7 years, including, by the way, not as a teenager, but as like a 25-year-old adult man who has made millions of dollars, when you are bullying 19-year-old fucking junglers and people who have never even played in the LEC and ruining their mental state, I don't think about what you might feel like when that is exposed to the world. I think about the people who suffered because of your actions and who will never ever get justice, by the way. What I did wasn't justice. All I did is make it known what this person did. There will never be justice. He will never pay people back lost earnings that they will never have again. He will never be able to fix people's careers so they haven't had them completely dismantled. Do you wonder why you've only just seen 113 again now? It was the fucking EU Masters champion. People like that, they have whole careers. He had to play on shitty Astralis, and now he's only been brought back by former coach Striker. So actually, here's what I did, Yamato. You know what? I imagine if you revealed, I'll use a very extreme example, that someone was secretly a serial killer, right? Because this is sort of the social equivalent of that. If someone was secretly a serial killer, and someone said, I'm going to expose all the stories of the people who knew this person and his darkness and what he did, you know what? I imagine that serial killer might feel really bad. I wouldn't give a flying fuck, mate. I'm thinking about the victims of the serial killer and their families. I think that trumps any fucking Rekkles fan or T1 fan or person who worked in an org or edited a video for him who goes, I met him and he was a really cool guy. All right, well, let me just call you up. You weren't depressed, mate. Get over it. Or other guy, did you just have your whole fucking career ruined and he told you he loved you, but now you had to go and play in a shit team and never had a chance at the LEC title again? He's got autism, bro. Get over it. I don't think that's acceptable, mate. That's one of the reasons why I haven't kept this really calm right now, because I think actually this notion of like, it's so unnecessary. Why are you making the video? That's disgusting. That is actually fucking disgusting. I'm not saying you're seeing it, mate, but that was the vibe of like, you just did this to hurt him. No, motherfucker. He repeatedly hurt other people for years and years and years and years. And you'll notice hasn't denied it. You'll notice those players didn't deny it. And so after that, it is now exposed. By the way, that's all I can do. All I can do is put that video out there, tank the aggro. It will now be forgotten about. He will continue to play with last for Tories. They'll probably be in LEC in a year or two, mate. He might even play more years in the LEC. Maybe he'll even win the LEC. I can't actually impact his career at all. So you know what? I think it's a very small price to pay that in this case, he felt bad. Are you ready for the punchline? For not watching the video. He didn't even watch the video. He doesn't even know what's in the video. And here's the last detail, Yamato. I allowed that premiere on intentionally to be up for many, many hours. And you know, there's actually a feature on YouTube. I could have scrubbed all the comments when the video came out and started fresh, right? The reason I left the comments, Yamato, and I've screenshotted it all, is because before 1 second of the video premiere had ever played, there were hundreds of comments saying it was all lies, it was all made up, it couldn't be true. true. I'm evil. I hate him. I'm bullying him. Like, bro, this was not about anything said in that video. This was some sort of insane, we are circling the wagons around Rekkles. He cannot do any wrong. And then lastly, I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't bring up autism in my own case, Yamato, because I don't like victim narratives. I actually like to know that, yes, I have strengths and I have weaknesses, and I play to my strengths and I try and minimize my weaknesses where possible. And if my weaknesses hurt people around me, I don't go, well, that's my weakness. I go, I'm very sorry about that. It's actually something I have a hard time controlling. Here's some of the ways in future. Maybe I can communicate better to you. Maybe I can get around that. I haven't seen any proof he ever did that in his career until more recently when he got this diagnosis. I've never ever heard a single coach or player ever say he understood this aspect of, like, maybe I'm the problem here. Maybe I'm doing it. So actually, I don't think you get to just go, what's that? A doctor says something, so none of that counts. It does count. It all counts. Everything I've done and said counts. Everything he's done and said counts. Everything you've done and said counts. That's life, mate. That's accepting responsibility. So hey, there you go. Anything else?
No, just on my side, right? Like I do think it's like from a personal side, right? It's like I carry also so many stories about what has happened in my own teams, in my own experiences, and like people carry stories of what I've done in past teams. It's like I like there were times where, you know, I wasn't the best coach and shit happened, and I do think that often there is an internal conflict for me in terms of, you know, making a decision in terms of informing others just to make sure that you know, in like there's like actors in the scene that are still active in the scene that part of me is like hopes that stories come out.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes it's like understanding my role in distributing that information so people know. So like maybe, you know, in the future sense, things might be different. You know, making a decision of giving that information or not is always something that I've always wrestled with, but I've always fell on the side of like, oh, it happened to the team, I'm going to keep it. If they come for me, then okay, it's a different thing. It's like I mentioned before that I carry like ammunition. But I do think there's been moments where I'm like, shit, should I just fucking put this to light because like this is fucking fucked up that it's continuing, you know? I've definitely had that.
So I give you some food for thought, by the way. I'll tell you something that I think will even make you think twice about the framing of this video. Do you remember what happened about a month or so ago when Peter Dunn did a video with me on my channel about perks in Heretics?
Yeah.
Why didn't everyone worry about how perks would feel when that video came out? Why didn't everyone go, why is Peter Dunn, an older man, bullying perks, one of the greatest players of all time, and a great captain and a champion? Why is he bringing this out now? You're not even in the game anymore, Peter. You're retired. Why are you doing this? No, what everyone did, and are you ready, Yamato, including Rekkles fans, because they thought, this is what's so crazy, they thought Perks' behavior was so bad it would justify what Rekkles has done because they thought Rekkles hadn't done anything. So when that video came out, everyone loved it. Not a single person ever said for 1 second, Yamato, where's the evidence? So it's just Peter Dunn saying it. Everyone believed it, hook, line, and sinker, every word out of his mouth. And then people even had the audacity, by the way, to say to me, hey, why didn't you mention anything about perks? It was my fucking video on my channel, you lunatic. It's exactly what you told me you just wanted now. I got the person on record. By the way, that is the only time you will ever see someone on record like that. And that's just because Peter Dunn is retired from esports. He is done in esports in both senses. And as a result, he will not ever be a coach again. So he actually didn't have to worry about people sending him hate messages. I mean, there's not many Perks fans as Rekkles fans in that sense. And actually, everyone loved that fucking video. And everyone believed every word and repeated every word. By the way, even though some of that was Peter Dunn's perspective and Peter Dunn's opinion. And by the way, who the fuck knows what's going on with Perks? If you don't know, Perks' dad died a few years back. He's had all sorts of things where he moved to America, then he moved back. He's had all things where he had to leave the team that he founded. I'm sure he's got all sorts of shit going on in his head, mate, but we don't give a flying fuck, do we? Because he hasn't come out and said he's got a magical word that makes everything else fine. I don't know what the fuck we're doing at this point in time, mate. At this point in time, people are just mad because Rekkles is mad as far as I can tell, or Rekkles fans are. Beyond that, let anyone out there who considers himself a man of character tell me where I lied, tell me where what I said was wrong, tell me what I said was unfair, and then tell me again how any of it's my opinion. I didn't have a single opinion in the whole video, bro. Now, how can it be a rant when my opinion isn't in the video? And by the way, when you say something's a rant, you intentionally mean that to diminish it. What you mean is the person's just getting mad and spouting off. Like, that's the opposite of what I did. For 1.5 years, I collect. By the way, you know everyone going, you just did this for clicks and money. Bro, I will never, ever get the opportunity cost lost back from that video. I must have spent like 20 hours alone on voice calls. Then I had to go back and fucking figure out every single thing they said and note it all down. Then I had to cross-reference it all. Then I had to do follow-up investigations with other people who could then, as a third party, be the one who independently verified something like that happened without being told. So it was blind, so we know it actually happened. I had to spend so much time that, but even if this video made $10,000, you might, I'll never get that time back. I will never get that. Mate, I could easily make money on these shows, on other ones, way more than that. It wasn't about money, mate. Listen, it popped off. Everyone couldn't stop watching it. It'll definitely make loads of money on my channel relative to my other YouTube videos. But I don't know if you know this, mate. I don't make my income off YouTube ad revenue. That's not one of the smallest parts of my revenue. That's not really the thing I'm about. If people don't know, I make videos on my channel for the things I want to talk about, for the things I think are important to talk about. Sometimes that might be something frivolous, like who was the best Quake dueler in 2003 from Sweden or something. But sometimes it might occasionally, like these pieces, be a really serious piece where I just actually have the feeling and have talked to these people that this has to get out there one way or another.
No, like you mentioned this, like my own framing is I understand the problem, not the problem, but the challenge of navigating, sharing this information without revealing the person. And like I thought that reaction that, oh, there's no proof, there's no sources, whatever. Like that.
People would say to you, Marto, hey, I could just make something up about you. Yeah, but you wouldn't have 23 years of not lying, so it wouldn't mean the same, would it? Yeah, you could just go, hey, I've heard you fuck kids. Like that's just you, a random person saying that. When I say something, it means something, mate. My opinion's one thing. My opinion could be wrong. It could be silly. It could be nonsense. It could be ill-informed. When I say a fact, it happened, and it is true to my knowledge.
Something that I wanted to ask, just for my own curiosity, is it's like you like we were on the show together when you mentioned the first time that you're going to make this video.
Yeah.
It's like the process of the time. It's like because a lot of these stories are like KC Fanatic 2023 was a game point. Was this like something you had on the back burner, or like what was the idea behind like the timing? You know.
I mean, the real problem is this. The only regret I have is that I waited so long to do it. Like, you're right. I actually had, say, like 85% of the video sort of like researched, it actually turned out, by the way, just making the script. This script, which is just obviously like keywords, like I've shown you before, the script alone to structure it, by the way, probably took like 2 hours, 3 hours. Like there's so much information, mate. That was the problem. That's also why I made it different sections. I even thought to myself, you know what? If I actually wanted this to just be like a banger where everyone's like, holy fuck, every 5 minutes, I should actually structure it differently. What I should do is I should bounce around. I should go like, here's a personality trait. Here's a storyline of inting scrims. Here's an aspect about how he manipulates people. Here's how he fucked up a live match at a Rift Rivals and didn't plus it. I could have done that, but I thought, you know what? I'm not actually about the drama in that sense. I want it to be like quite a coherent video. So I want one section. Here's who he is to the public. Here's who he is in terms of how he communicates with his teammates. Here's his champion pool issues over the years, which then leads into what is he like in scrims? What's he like in a boot camp? What did he do in official matches? What's he just like in a team environment? What's he like in the off-season? I made it actually very segmented. I think most people just watched the first 40 minutes, turned it off, and intentionally didn't go to all the straight fire stories. If you do that, by the way, that's your own ignorance, mate. I don't mind stupid people. You can be an idiot. But when people are willfully ignorant, I have no time for that. And so actually, if I could have, when I told you, I actually would have done it like a month after that. I mean, first of all, by the way, I will say, I do think the entire autism angle has just basically skewed and warped the whole discussion. It just became all about that. And what's so gross about that, by the way, Yamato, is, as someone who is autistic and doesn't bring it up all the time, the idea thousands of people who aren't autistic are going to tell me what the experience of being autistic is like. Get the fuck out of my face. Can you not see how gross that is? You know what? One of the number one League of Legends fan bases who, if sending horrible messages, have harassed an autistic person would be Rekkles fans right up until the second he got the autism diagnosis. And then they picked right up where they left off as soon as I did this video. So if the good guys are the ones saying to kill yourself, you know what? I think I've figured out which the sides are there. I'm just here to actually represent the victims, mate. So all I'll say is I think the reaction alone told you. I'll give you a bit of food for thought. So 2 things. One, I should have done it at the end of whatever it was, 2023, I think it was, when I told you that. I think it was around Christmas or something around that time. I actually just meant to do it at the time, but this was such an insane undertaking. And as I just said, this isn't my full-time job, bro. I have like 50 jobs. I do CS shit as well. Like, that's one of those things where you can't just sit down for an hour and do it. You probably had to sit down in about like 7 or 8 sessions of many hours of like listening to stuff, doing the notes, checking. So, by the way, just going and finding the games. Do you know how many times someone would tell me a game and they'd be like, it was Rift Rivals in the 3rd game. And then you're looking, it's like, oh, you didn't even play Rift Rivals. You look at, oh, it means MSI. You're like, stuff like that took forever, mate. Like, remember, people are going off memory sometimes, and sometimes people remember stuff incorrectly, and then I have to cross-reference. By the way, the stories I had to take out because, first of all, some of them were too personal. That's why I said in the video, if he talks about my personal life, then I'll talk about his. If not, I believe that's a line that should be a boundary. You don't go into people's personal lives. This is about the professional person who played League of Legends for money. There's that aspect. And then I'll just give you one last piece of food for thought. Imagine the exact same video. Now, look, it couldn't exist. I actually know this person's career. They wouldn't have as many stories. But imagine the exact same video comes out a week earlier, Yamato, but the topic isn't Rekkles. Are you ready? The topic's upset. How do you think that video would be received? Would it be like this? Would everyone go, but how does Upset feel? Remember what happened with his wife a few years ago? He had a lot of mental issues. I'm sure he's been struggling because he came 10th place all this time. Oh, you're bullying him. Would they all go, hey, these stories are all probably nonsense. How dare you bring out these stories? No, you know in your heart, Yamato, that would be the #1 video on Reddit. People would even go, what amazing journalism by Thorin, outing that piece of shit Upset, because he's an unpopular player. You know that. Rekkles is the most, by the way, Rekkles, who didn't even play in a top major region last year, I believe was the 2nd most searched name on Wikipedia after Faker, bro. After Faker. Like, he's above Carrier, world champion. He's above, like, all the FlyQuest, all the Cloud9, all the G2, all those players. He's above all that. That's how popular this player is. So, would you say I'm wrong? If this video was about Upset, it was all the same stories, would everyone go, this is disgraceful, how dare you? What do you think?
No, for sure not. Like, the community perception is a very, very powerful tool and weapon, right? It's for sure. It's like, I think, like the Perks thing is already the example that is the most blatant. It's already happened, and people are more inclined to move in a certain direction. Definitely. I wanted to ask you, because you did say in the video, maybe it's like
go for it,
because it sparked my curiosity. You mentioned that you almost felt like there's certain moments you feel sympathetic about, like you feel sympathy, and could you elaborate?
Sure.
Is this the time for it?
Well, here's the problem. As I say in the video, I actually have never had any personal connection to Rekkles. I've never spoken to the guy. All I've ever seen is what he's like on camera and then the stories that people have told me behind the scenes. Now, the interesting thing is this. If you ever look at my career, Yamato, there's this really weird perception that I only love antisocial arseholes. So think about the people in my career I love. Now, what's funny is some of them I'm going to reference, by the way, now aren't even thought of that way. But you know what it was like back in the day. Do you remember back in the day in the original Fnatic, how people thought about Soaz? He's a whiner, and he's arrogant, and, he doesn't need to practice, he can win. People used to actually flame all the Americans loved to hate that guy on Reddit, mate. They all fucking were loving it when he was failing. That's why they loved it when he went over in Immortals. They were like, he was shit all along or whatever. Then think of the other ones, Forgiven. By the way, one of the hardest players ever to be coached. One of the people who's caused... The joke is, if you ever listen to my Reflections interviews, almost every teammate has a story about how Forgiven almost made them cry, or fucking just think, oh, fuck, even though we're the second best team, let's just quit the game. I might just retire or something. He was doing that shit. Then you have players like Dardoch was a person, double lift himself for many, many, many years. Now, what you'll notice along the line, you can maybe say Upset, but he was never as bad as this, by the way. Upset was more just like a guy where he just had very strong opinions, The reason why I grab self-made, even though he's always been a dickhead to me, I've actually always had a self-made, because here's what I can appreciate about them. These are people who clearly are socially misaligned, bro. They actually, in most cases, these people aren't malicious. This is actually their fucked up coping mechanism for their own frustrations. Like I've always said, Forgiven, the reason why so many people hated playing with Forgiven, but always talk quite fondly, is because they know that he was actually trying to win the game. He was never he was never inting a scrim to fuck you up. He was screaming at you in the scrim because he didn't do what he thought you needed to do to win the game. They could always respect that aspect. And so basically what I'm getting at is I've always had an attraction to people who are very talented, but their social aspects and their personality gets in their way. And that's what fucks them up. Because here's the thing. I used to be like that in my life. I've told this story many times. In the very early time of my esports career, I was a very lazy person. I was the guy who did the min-max, mate. I would just do the one piece where I was feeling like it that day. Then I'd just chill for a few days. Or I'd do a bunch of stuff over here, but I'd think, I remember most of that. I don't need to research it. And then there was times in life where I learned the outside discipline things that made me a lot more diligent. it actually took me a long, long time, but it probably took me over 10 years to learn the social aspect. If you ever even heard how I used to talk about League or CS, I would make the Reddit super team of all the names, and I wouldn't even give a fucking thought about, wait a minute, this guy's silent, and that guy wouldn't ever get along with this sort of personality, and actually you haven't got a glue guy there, you haven't got the guy who raises the morale, because, hey, that's just some bullshit. Hey, anyone could cheer. It's all about the shooting in the game and stuff. Like, I was a very, very one-dimensional thinker about League of Legends and life itself. So as I've gone through those challenges myself and matured as an individual and overcome some of my own weaknesses, the reason I'm drawn to people like that is because I can see how, oh, bro, if you just, like, I used to tell Forgiven this. I even told Simple this, by the way, before he was the greatest player in Counter-Strike. I told Simple, bro, I'm not even exaggerating. If you even just did a fake apology to your teammates, like 1 out of 5 times, it would go so far, bro. Even if you just said, you know what, even though in my own head, it wasn't my fault. Maybe that was my bad in this game. You know what? I know I carried the game, but I was too harsh on you in that moment where you fucked up. I said, if you do small things like that, bro, it's going to have such a great impact on your teammates. And the second you do that, and your teammates now don't just play with you, they play for you, you will win everything. I have a letter where I wrote an open letter to Simple about this. I basically said, you can be the greatest player of all time, but you have to basically, in the same ways you grinded on your skill set, you got to grind on your social aspect now, and you got to learn how to communicate. You got to learn, by the way, how to even communicate your flaws. And by the way, here's a little pro tip for people in life. In your relationship, let's assume you have a partner, a spouse. It's not that you have to be perfect, or it's not that you identify a problem and fix it. Some problems are very hard and may never be fixed. But if you can communicate the problem, that you're aware of it, that you understand the impact it's having on the other person, and here's the best angle of all, especially if you're autistic. If you can give them a little pro tip, if you can tell them something like, look, I have a really hard time, for example, with like time. Like, I get really annoyed if people are late, or we don't have an exact time frame, and then I'll be worried. If so, how about this? If you want to do something with me next week, just tell me like an exact time, offer me 3 slots and I'll book you in. And that, things like that go so far, bro. Even if you tell someone, I'll give you an example, you have bad sleep, you drink a bit of caffeine, you're a bit irritable. If you tell someone at the beginning of the day, look, it's not an excuse, but I'm probably going to be a bit of an arsehole today. I'm sort of fucking on edge. You know, like I'm annoyed about something that's nothing to do with you. And so later on, if I'm a bit short with you, just remind me of that. It'll bring me back to the moment and ground me. And then maybe I won't seem like I'm just being horrible to you, or I have ill feelings towards you. And I don't want to make you feel bad. That stuff like that goes so far. So to bring it round to Rekkles, I don't know him. So I've never had a chance to have these conversations with him. I've talked to his teammates over the years and suggested these things. Sadly, they're not necessarily in the position to understand any of these factors. So yes, there were times in these stories, by the way, like I'll give you an example. The part that everyone probably thinks is really like fucking, ooh, that's like drama, is where people were saying he's like a sociopath and he's turning his emotion off and just staring at a wall. Bro, that's actually not, to me, that's one of the less malicious parts to me. I don't think that's as conscious as people think. I think if a neurotypical person did that, they would intentionally be giving you the cold shoulder. They'd be fucking with you. They'd sort of even be saying it by being aloof. Like, I don't have to talk. Who the fuck are you? I don't even have to speak to you. In fact, until my boss makes me, I won't even do it. But I actually did, in moments like that, think to myself, oh, this is a guy who can't handle it. He's shutting down. This is someone where actually the other person, their method of trying to get him to open up is to prod him some more and to ask him to open up more. And that's actually going to make him go more into his shell. And it's going to make him retreat more. And then he's going to think things like, people are all against me. Here's the problem though, Yamato. That's when I'm doing what you, the fans, are doing. I'm empathizing with Rekkles' position and what he's feeling. But then when I come out of it and I look at the things he did that aren't just simple mistakes or people just didn't understand, things where he actually actively did Littlefinger from Game of Thrones and fucked people, or got coaches fired from their jobs, or just lied to people's faces and said he liked them and went out of his way to befriend them and then privately betrayed them and was trying the whole time to get someone else in the team. I just think about the victims, mate, and it makes it very easy to press hit send on the video.
No, I think that part makes sense. You know, I do think, you know, it's like my direct, it's like I played with Rekkles back in season 2, so it's like completely like irrelevant, you know, because we both just kids.
He was literally a teenager back then.
Yeah, it's like, well, I was a teenager, he was a teenager, and like we were just playing League, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I do think like I never was on the inside on the team with him. Like it was bound to happen, right? Back in that off season between 2020 and 2021, because of course Rekkles was like the main target for Fnatic and G2 at the time. Because he was just holding like the off season by the balls, but I knew then that like Hilly and Whippo and the squad like that they played with at that Worlds wanted to really work with him. And for me from outside, it's like, oh, he fucking performed at Worlds, he did well. I wanted to play with him or work with him. It's like, you know, for me, I do think it's like it's always like the path to redemption, right? It's like for everybody. Because like a lot of the behaviors that occur are also like behaviors I saw like in other players, like in segments, right? It's like, well, player behave like this. It's like high pressure environment. Like people get like really fucking, you get to see the worst side of people like in high pressure environments.
Absolutely,
It's like people think it's so rosy. Like I always make the claim. It's like people mention, it's like, why would Zeus want to leave T1? I was like, bro, these 3 years probably were like the most stressful, high pressure fucking, like high pressure moments. Like imagine if you're on T1, you fucking lose. Like let's say
you
that's
let
final
Fake
lose
down,
against
you let
AJ.
T1 down. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
If
it's like, oh, like imagine the like the mental strain. It's like with the fact that it's like the image of how everything is on the outside is so like clean is crazy, and I think that aspect of like personality really comes through. It's like I've seen like the worst side of people in competition, and that's what it is. I do think it's like when it is like malicious to the point where it's not from like an angle of wanting to move the team forward, because usually that's like there needs to be the trust that people are doing things with the right intent. There is that. But a lot of players need to do that soul searching. Like it seems like post. I heard from people that 2023 Fnatic was like different in many ways. I don't know if it was because like he came back to the major league, back to Fnatic, right? There's a sense of like humbleness maybe that comes with it, and then it's like I believe the diagnosis was like made public, right, with the whole T1 thing, and there seems to be some kind of like progression. But I am understanding of the point of view that it's like some people that might have experienced certain things, it's like certain things I've experienced with people, it's like I have moved because I have found my forgiveness. It's like for me to move on, you need to forgive, right? And I can see that angle also from players that might have had like issues, players that maybe speak up, like a Brox and Bupo. It's like, oh, you look at it from a different perspective. You kind of feel like, oh, for me to be able to move on, it's like I need to, forgive and understand. That's like growth from every angle. And I don't know how you feel now, but it's like post the diagnosis being made public, and also it's like his stint in T1 and now like Los Ratones. Do you think that he's different?
I mean, the problem with that is like, what am I comparing it to? Like, first of all, notice, here's why I don't accept even that framing, Yamato. Because the first thing you need to do to be forgiven and to move on is to acknowledge it happened and then apologize. Now, don't tell me he can do that privately. The whole time during his whole career, he's been turning that stream on and going on LEC and going on Reddit and saying that he loves these people and they love him and that he has no problems and that it's all lies. And it's only ever the org owners that are the lies. It's G2 are liars, Fnatic are liars. Now, hilariously, Carmine Corp are great, even though, as I pointed out, he basically got his coach fired. He put his coach in a position where his coach had to cripple himself or leave the org. He left the org and he's now the coach of BDS. Like this, as far as I can tell, the only teams he was cool in was the early teams till 2017. Those ones are fine. And then potentially T1, a team where, by the way, he cannot fluently speak to his teammates except in his mother tongue. Well, it's not his mother tongue, be Swedish, but it'd have to be in English. Like, that's even something, by the way, I thought was quite sinister, where he just blatantly said in that K-Drill interview, like he implied he could actually talk Korean. Mate, you don't have to go too deep on it, but you lived in Korea. I don't care how many hours a day you do lessons for. Bro, it would take like 5 years to get to the level of like a child in Korean. It's one of the hardest languages in the world. It has no bearing on English at all. This isn't like when you go to Spain and you can pick up a few phrases. It's got like Romance language elements. There's no way he can speak Korean. There's just no way. If you ever watched the clips, why isn't he just speaking Korean to them over the dinner? He's not. They're like loosely translating things and saying things, and he's saying like the most basic phrases of all time, mate. So I actually haven't seen any signs that he's changed. I've certainly never seen him acknowledge it. And the fact that now the whole thing's like, well, I just want to move past it and I don't feel good about that. I'm sorry, you don't get to make that call. At the end of the day, is it true or not? This is the question for Rekkles. Is it true or not? Did you do the things I said in the video? If you did them, then you can move on if you want. I can't make you not. But I think if you want to be believed that you have changed, you must literally you must actually have a penance for that. You must say publicly, since you did so much public work before, that what happened, what is true, you should actually acknowledge it all. Listen, own it if you want at that point in time. Because here's the other thing people keep doing, Yamato. If someone diagnoses you with cancer, is that all you need to do? Do you just get better from cancer because you know you've got cancer? No, you have to fucking aggressively deal with it, bro. You have to figure out things that are going to limit the growth of it. You have to actually attack it and root it out. And especially, you'd probably have to change your whole way of life for a period of time. This is why I'm disgusted by people constantly bringing up this autism angle. It doesn't explain all these things. Some of that behavior is not the behavior of people, as far as I know, who are autistic, Yamato. Like, I'll give you an example. All the autistic people I've ever known are actually, they're more like the person who's very reserved. They have no social game whatsoever. Even if they do, it falls apart in like a minute. They can do a joke, but then if it doesn't land, they're fucked. They're not doing this thing where people are saying for the first week or two, you're really cool and you're in tune and they're loving you and the vibe, but then you go cold. No, it'd be the other way around. If anything, they'd start cold and they warm up over time once you get to know them and you know their specific way and their way of talking and you bond with them a little bit and you play a game or an intro, then they open it. It's the other way around. So I find it disgusting that people who don't have autism are just going to tell me, autism explains it all. None of it's his fault because of autism. Who cares about the victims because of autism? And then finally, since he's got a diagnosis and he talks to a psychiatrist, he's just better now. Didn't LS himself say on his stream, he went through like 20 therapists and physio and psychiatrists. Well, and how did Rekkles instantly find one that just cured him? Like, it's some magic. By the way, there isn't a cure, Yamato. It's a condition of how your brain works. Like, it's not like you got a cold and you take some fucking ginger tea and fucking some whatever drug you would take to get over a cold. That's not how it works. So I find that whole thing gross, bro. Like, why do people, here's what I don't get. Why do I need to tell you he was awesome in T1? What would that have to do with what he did to people in Fnatic? What would that have to do with what he did with people in
G2? Like a side part, right? Like, I understand that the video wasn't focused on that aspect. It was stories of what happened in the previous years. I understand that part. I can add though that like we had Rekkles on Euphoria. I believe it was back in 2020, and he did already publicly say that he was going to therapy, right? So it could have been some like a long-term process that was.
I don't know the guy, mate, so I can only go off what he said publicly. Same as most people. The difference is, though, I get the feeling most people do think they know what he's like privately. And by the way, I told you before, I actually think it's gross for people to go, I actually did some videos for him and he's always cool. What are you saying? You know that's an implication that it's a lie, what people are saying. That is, I'm going to give a very extreme example right now, but I'm serious about this, Yamato. If somebody said, because this has happened in esports, not with Rekkles, if somebody made an accusation of sexual assault and they said, at this party in 2017, I was sexually assaulted by insert a random Bill Bob 7000 from Germany, right? If you then came out on Twitter and went, well, I've been video editing videos for Bill Bob 7000 and he never sexually assaulted me, you are quite literally implying that means it didn't happen. That is absolutely your purpose in saying that. So I think it is fucking insane for like Joe Marsh. He's not even in fucking Fnatic on G2. He's going to come out and imply that like Rekkles isn't like that at all. Okay, bro, you can do that if you want. I don't know what your agenda is, or rather I do. And actually, that's gross to me, mate. That's gross. Look, you can say it from this angle. Here, notice how they never own it as well. What you could do is this, Yamato. If it was a good faith comment, what you'd say is this. Look, I can't speak to Rekkles in his past teams. I've heard he had problems and a lot of issues with teammates, and maybe people hold ill word. All I can say is since he's been in T1, I thought he was very good. He was a model player and he was very disciplined and we had no issues with him at all. So we're very happy working with him and we would work with him again. You could say that. But that implication of like, it didn't happen to me, who gives a fuck? Still happened to those people. Again, did those people get depressed? Did they have their careers ended? Did they get ruined by Rekkles fans publicly because it was implied the jungler entered all the games or the fucking top laner won't communicate? Did those things happen? Because if they did, I don't care what he was like in T1. That's not even my business to need to care about, by the way. I don't even, whatever. It's whatever at this point, mate.
No. It's like the public perception is just a game, right? It's just a game. It's like in a lot of cases just a facade. Like we mentioned it about the whole EWC thing too, right? It's like just about like having public perception by your side and riding waves most of the time, right?
I'll give you a crazy example, bro. If there's one part of the video I would tell you to go and watch, it's when I talk about inting drafts and scrims, bro, because that's your world. You know about this. There's even a hilarious part where LS starts watching the video. He also just tunes out after like 45 minutes or something, because he can't handle all the personality stuff. He just assigns all of that to autism because LS himself had a diagnosis in the last few years. And so LS relates to him very heavily, and LS hasn't done these things to people. So LS's thing is just like, oh, they're just not understanding his autism. autism. The problem is this. There's a hilarious moment where even though if you watch the video, LS is quite clearly and very honestly trying to find a way it's not Rekkles' fault. And he skips to an actual game example I gave of a game against Schalke when he was in G2. And there's a moment in this game where Rekkles on Tristana just jumps out of a fight and refuses to go back in when they've used all the ults and everything of the other team. And for real, he could have got like a 3k or even a penta around the dragon. Here's what's hilarious. Go watch this on his stream. It's on his Twitter like video thing if you go and click on the icon or whatever. Right? On this stream, LS initially gets the wrong moment. He gets the earlier dragon fight and he watches it and he goes, this is nothing. This is nothing. But then what's hilarious is because he's actually an honest person, he keeps the video rolling. He sees the clip I'm talking about and even he goes, yeah, that is illegal actually. Yeah, he did just jump. He should have just stayed in that fight and killed them all. Like, even he owns it, mate. So one of the saddest things about this as well is, I'll just give you this last detail, mate. The other reason why I think you would find the draft and the inting part very interesting is, this is how I know it was bad faith by Rekkles fans. Because people even told me, even famous people, that I had made up that these were illegal drafts or bot lanes that aren't meta. Right? One, Yamato, I didn't put my opinions in the video. That is what the greatest players of all time and his teammates said about that draft, about that pick, about what he did in that team fight. You're welcome to disagree with them, but spoiler, I didn't give that opinion. And that's how I know people are biased, bro, because they even said all those picks were nonsense. They were all, they were telling me, are you ready, Yamato? They said it's totally fine. I hope you remember this because it's your era. In 2021 spring, they were saying it's a totally normal bot lane to play Aphelios and Tom Kench.
Oh, yeah.
Or Aphelios and Thresh. Aphelios and Thresh, sorry.
2021 was, they played Vayne Thresh against me. Because the funny, like two of the examples was against me in particular. It was once when I was in Vitality 2018.
Oh my God, and then, when he did the jumping on Vayne, right?
And then there was the Vayne Thresh against us when we played like the Tristana.
It wasn't meta at the time, mate. That was not a meta pick.
It wasn't. I can confirm that. If I had we were laughing on stage like when that came through.
Yeah.
So it's like and then once again it's like,
it was fuck up. He never picked Vayne again. He just did it that one time. You know.
Yeah, I think like just the main thing. I guess is just you framed it in a way where of course it's like it's the stories of people that want to get this off the chest. And I think everyone came at it in bad faith due to what, of course, like what the community perception is. It's like people think it's like you want to drag him down for what he is now, but you just want to put these stories to light. And it's sometimes I wish.
Question, mate. How do you drag someone with the truth? The way you fuck with someone, mate, is you lie about them. You misrepresent them. I didn't do that. One, I didn't give my opinion. By the way, I'm obliged. I'm actually totally fine to give my opinion. You guys don't tell me what the fuck I say on my YouTube channel. By the way, if I'm just some 41-year-old boomer, turn off the YouTube channel, idiots. You know, there's a million things on the internet. Why am I relevant? You know why I'm relevant, Yamato? Because I am relevant, because I have status in this industry, because I've done things, because I've told the truth. That is why the video has 300,000 views, mate. It's not that I'm irrelevant. I'll give you an example. Say I told you right now, Yamato, you won't believe this. Bill Bob 4000 from Colombia's made a video on Rekkles. You going to go watch it? Of course you're fucking not. You don't care. He's irrelevant. The person themselves has to be relevant for you to care what they've said. That's why the whole thing, I said, if you look at how people talk about the topic and frame it, you can immediately tell what their whole agenda is, bro. And I've seen almost no one actually address what was in the video.
No. I listened through the video twice, and like I had some thoughts that I just wanted to bring up to you.
By the way, if you have any more, like the only thing. Let's do it now before we end. Give me some.
No. Honestly, like the main thing that I was just curious about is like you mentioned the sympathy aspect, and then I wanted to know about the timing as well, and then I just wanted to like the intention if it was fulfilled, and this was covered. You know, this was the only thing that I was left wondering because it's like the stories. It's like I understood the framing, I got the framing, and that's it. That's it to my part. I just was wondering. You know.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's like I'm a big person on like it's like I understand I have so much sympathy for how things are and how things are manipulated and how like I wish for people to be like to be on their own path to redemption and how like every person kind of deals with their own challenges. So like for me it's like I always fall on the side of it's like I want any person, even my worst enemy, to just do better, you know? But I also understand that this is also your intent in a way.
In my opinion, the only way someone like that ever does face up to it is they are exposed publicly. Didn't I say in the video that many people who even liked Rekkles acknowledged that the reason he had massive behavioural flaws is because he was never in any context punished. That's why players wanted him benched. That's why people wished they could have come out and said, oh, he sort of fucked me over at that team. They felt like because he got away with it, it never was addressed. He could just go on to the next team, onto the next teammate, onto the next coach. And by the way, if you only knew how many of these coaches you might, I didn't even say this in the video, every coach he got pretty much would start to think, I'll be the one who gets through to him. I'll be the one who fixes him. I'll be the one who makes it work. And they would all pretty much later come to the conclusion, oh, it's the same shit as with the last guy. Like, oh, this is actually just a problem it's not me in this scenario. I'm not the equation that is like messing things up. So no, the sad thing is so many people have tried over the years to help this guy and to set him right. And look, you can claim, I don't know me, I haven't talked to him, I wasn't there in the room. You can claim this autism diagnosis has now changed his whole worldview and he realizes he's got issues and he's worked on them. That could well be. But first of all, he wasn't in an LEC team when he was doing all that stuff. And secondly, look, he can play Los Ratones in T1 for the rest of his career as far as I'm concerned. The people who told me this info told me they want any future LEC teammate or coach to at least be aware of this if they play with him. So they go in with open eyes and you know what you're going to get if that's going to happen. Because I'll tell you what, the thing that burned a lot of them the most was when they almost made like support groups after their teams playing with him, mate. They'd message someone from the old team and privately they'd be like, oh, I did the same thing. Oh, I did that to me. What the fuck? And they were like, oh, if I'd have known that, then I'd have put, but no one knew it. And so if no one knows it, isn't knowledge power? Isn't that how we actually fix problems, mate? We make people aware of it. We expose what is bad. By the way, potentially we expose what is good too. But no one's ever exposed what's bad. And I'll just leave you on this note. Everyone who lied and said, well, we all knew all this and it wasn't that bad anyway. Well, if it wasn't that bad anyway, what's the problem with the video? Oh, I've got you on that one, haven't you? So if it was bad, well, you definitely didn't know this because for 10 years you told me he didn't do any of these things and I was making it all up. And then lastly, you all fucking feasted on that Perks video and you loved every single little morsel about what a piece of shit Perks was in Heretics and all how abusive he was. And then when I exposed that Rekkles did way worse for way longer and is way less liked by his teammates behind the scenes, you didn't like that, did you? Well, you know what? Maybe you, the fan, and you, the viewer, need to sip some of that medicine too. And I don't care if it's bitter going down. It's the only thing that's going to help you.
Yeah.
Few questions?
No. I just, I guess I circle back to what I said initially, right? It's like, it's so hard sometimes to, it's like, I've gone by the principle. It's like, I keep all esports stories to myself. Maybe one day I write a crazy book. But sometimes I ask myself, it's like, maybe if the let's say the punishment or the they went through, you know, the right way of redemption, maybe it would be for the better, you know, and that's something that I will have to carry. Do we do viewer questions now?
Yeah, let's do a little 5-minute break quickly. We'll come back and do some viewer questions and we'll end on a high note.
Let's do it.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.